All right, on tonight's episode of Python Papi, we're back inside our generative AI course, and we're still putting the final touches on the front end of our medical chatbot project. So let's have a look at what we went over tonight. Now, tonight was pretty much the same as last night. We just added a few more features to our front end. So we're going to do some light reading and see exactly what we went over. So I think the last thing we went over last night was we added the app equals flask name. Now, this is how we define our flask. The next thing we need to do is load our API environment. This is the code we will use to do that. So we have the load.env function. Then we have our Pinecone API key and our Pinecone environment. Don't forget, we don't need the Pinecone environment if we're not actually using an environment, if we're going serverless. But again, you'll come across that issue once you actually get there. For now, I'm leaving it in the code. So if you do need it, you need it. Next, we will load our embedding mode. This is the code we will use to do that. We have our embeddings equals download Huggy Face embeddings function. Next, we need to initialize our pinecone and our index name. This is the code we will use to do that. You see, we have our pinecone.init, and then parameters. We have API key equals pinecone API key, and environment is the pinecone API environment. The index name is going to be medical chatbot. That's the name we gave it. Now, if we have an existing Pinecone vector database and we already have an index name, we can use this code below. So we can see the doc search equals pinecone dot from existing index name, embeddings. So if we already have an index name, which we do here, and we want to run our program again, we can just implement this doc search equals pinecone dot from existing index, and that should still give us the same result. The next thing we need to do, or the next thing we'll be adding to our app.py file, are the prompt templates, the chain type quarks, and the LLM equals C transformers. Now these are the codes we will use. These are the codes we will be using. So you have the prompt equals prompt template. See the template equals prompt template. Input variables equals context and question. And I can show exactly where we got that information from. We got that directly from the prompt that we have here from earlier. So you can see here we have our prompt template, and then we have the context and then the question. So that's where we got that from. Let's move forward. Thing went down a little bit too far. Okay, and the next thing was a chain type quarks. It'll be the prompt. And then LLM equals C transformers. It's going to give us our model. This is the model we're actually going to be loading. We already done it out. We already done it. Obviously, when we ran it in the Google Colabs, this is the model we ran here. And this is the model type is llama, and the config, as you remember, we didn't use this config because we had to move some things around in the Google Colab. Now, actually, half of this code I'm not going to be able to use in the. I'm going to have to use the code that I used from the Google Colab because that's what actually worked for us. None of this stuff worked for us. I'm just going through the motions of copying it down so I can figure out how to structure it and make sure everything is synced properly and moving in unison. But yeah, again, half of this code is going to have to be transferred out for the updated code anyway for it to even work to begin with. So yeah, there's that. Like we won't have this config here. It'll just be max new tokens equals 512 and the temperature equals zero point 0.8. So we have that there. And then the next thing we need to do is initialize our QA object. That's our question and answer. This is the code we will use to do that. You can see we have the QA equals retrieval QA dot from chain type, all its parameters. And next we will create the default route to our flask. This is the code we will use to do that. So we have app.route. Now this is our decorator. Then we have our index, the return render template, chat.html. And this is how we will execute this code. So if name equals main, app.run, and debug equals true. So that's how we're going to actually run the code or run our flask. And that's as far as we got so far. Let me show you the app.py file to make sure we updated everything over here and not just taking notes and writing the code down, but we're actually writing the code down as a whole. So you can see this is everything here. We just went over inside the walkthrough file. This is going to be our actual app.py file. You can see we have all of the code that we went over tonight and everything's updated. So I think we get into the nitty gritty of it. We're actually going to be finishing up soon. But again, like I said, I'm not going to be able to run this code like this anyway, because if you recall, we did a lot of moving around and we did a lot of configuring our own code for the medical chatbot over in the Google Colab. So if I did want to run it on Flash, I'm going to have to bring that code over and then configure this around it. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But of course, I will keep you posted every step of the way. For now, it's the Python Papi. You guys stay Gucci.